The last thing I expected my retirement party to include was a chess match, not an actual one. Just the old walnut chessboard that had sat in my office for almost 30 years. When the speeches ended and everyone wandered toward the buffet, my granddaughter Lily climbed onto the chair across from me and pushed a white pawn forward with both hands. "Your move, Grandpa," I smiled. "You know I let you win." She folded her arms. "You've never let me win." She was right. I'd taught her that winning only mattered if she'd earned it. "Then why do I keep beating you?" "Because you still believe every game is about the next move." She frowned. "And it isn't? It's about the move 5 turns from now." She stared at the board for several seconds before nodding, as if I'd just shared one of life's great secrets. Maybe I had. That lesson had built everything I'd owned. For 41 years, I ran Whitmore Industrial Supply, a regional manufacturing company that started inside a rented warehouse with 3 employees and a leaking roof. By the time I retired, we employed nearly 400 people across 3 states. People assumed I was proud of the money. I wasn't. Money comes and goes. I was proud that almost every supervisor in that company had started sweeping floors, including my son. Ryan hated when I reminded people of that. "Dad," he laughed during his retirement speech, "you still tell everyone I pushed a broom. You did. I was 16, you missed a lot of corners." The room erupted with laughter. Even Ryan smiled. At least, he smiled long enough for everyone else to believe we were exactly what we appeared to be. A happy family celebrating the founder's retirement. Looking back, that might have been the greatest performance any of us ever gave. My wife, Margaret, died 11 years earlier. Cancer fast, merciless. The kind that gives you just enough time to promise you'll be okay. Knowing you won't, after she was gone, people expected me to sell the house, move closer to Ryan, start over. Instead, I stayed exactly where we'd built our life together. Same porch, same workshop, same coffee mug she'd bought me 25 Christmases in a row because she claimed I kept breaking them. I never corrected her. I still own every single one. Sometimes love survives inside ridiculous little habits. Retirement agreed with me. Every Tuesday morning I'd volunteer at the vocational school, teaching teenagers how to repair industrial machinery. Thursday afternoons belonged to chess at the community center. Fridays belonged to Lily. She'd come over after school, raid my refrigerator, beat me at card games she'd invented halfway through playing them, then leave wearing one of my old baseball caps. Those afternoons became the best part of my week, which is probably why I almost ignored the first warning. It arrived disguised as a compliment. Ryan stopped by one Friday carrying Chinese takeout. "You've really simplified your life. I've tried. No more company stress, no board meetings, no investors, no employees." He looked around the kitchen. "You don't need much anymore." I laughed. "I never did." He nodded thoughtfully. Then his eyes drifted toward the old fireproof filing cabinet tucked beneath the staircase. "You still keep all your paperwork in there?" "Some of it. You should digitize everything." "I'm old, so?" "I enjoy annoying people under 50, he chuckled. "I'll come organize it someday. You'll throw everything away. I'll recycle it. I don't trust recycling." He laughed again. Normal conversation, completely ordinary, except for one tiny detail. When he thought I wasn't looking, he glanced at the filing cabinet a second time, not casually, carefully, like he was confirming it still existed. At the time, I dismissed it. Now, I wish I hadn't. 2 weeks later, my annual physical ended with words no one enjoys hearing. "Your heart is strong." The cardiologist smiled, "But your carotid artery isn't." He rotated his monitor toward me. A narrow section glowed on the scan. "Nothing immediately dangerous, but we should schedule surgery before it becomes dangerous." "When?" "Within 2 months." I nodded. I'd buried enough friends to know pretending health problems don't exist has never cured one. As I left, Dr. Patel handed me a thick envelope. "Take these home, read everything, and don't let your son convince you to Google statistics." I laughed. "He'll try. He definitely will." That evening, Ryan insisted on driving me home. He asked all the usual questions: recovery time, medication, hospital, physical therapy. Responsible questions, the kind any son would ask. Then, one question landed differently. "So," he said casually, "if something happened unexpectedly, who handles everything?" I looked out the passenger window. "What everything?" "The estate, the house, the investments." I smiled. "You planning something?" He laughed. No, I'm planning nothing. That answer should have ended the conversation. Instead, he became unusually quiet. 3 nights later, I woke around 2 in the morning, not because of pain, because I'd forgotten to close the workshop window. As I walked downstairs, I noticed light spilling beneath the study door. Ryan's car was parked outside Strange. I'd given him a key years ago. He sometimes stopped by if he was working late. I was about to walk in when I heard another voice, a woman, his wife, Claire. I still don't like this. Ryan answered immediately. You won't have to. A long silence followed. Then, his voice dropped low. So listen carefully. Once the old man's gone, another pause. We split it even. Every muscle in my body froze. Claire whispered, "Are you sure he never changed the plan?" Ryan laughed quietly. He still thinks I'm 3 moves behind him. He has no idea. Another pause. I've already figured everything out. I stood in the darkness outside my own study, completely unnoticed. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking, because Ryan had just made one mistake. He believed he was the only person in the family who knew how to think 5 moves ahead. He'd forgotten who taught him the game. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night, not because of what Ryan had said, because of what he hadn't. Once the old man's gone, we split it even. Split what? My estate? The company? The house? He never said. And Claire, she hadn't sounded excited. She'd sounded frightened. That mattered. People planning something together don't usually whisper with fear. One of them already knows more than the other. The next morning, I behaved exactly as I always did. Coffee at 6, walk around the neighborhood at 7, breakfast at the diner on Maple Street at 8. Routine has an incredible advantage. People stop paying attention to it. Ryan called while I was halfway through my eggs. Morning, Dad. Morning. How are you feeling? Still ugly. You've been saying that for 30 years, and I've been right. He laughed, perfectly normal. So, I was thinking, dangerous. You should let me help organize your financial records before your surgery. There it is. What? The real reason for the phone call. He laughed again. You caught me. I always do. Seriously, Dad. If something unexpected happens, you'll know where everything is. I stirred my coffee. I already know where everything is. I meant me. I know. The conversation ended pleasantly, almost too pleasantly. Instead of going home, I drove to Whitmore Industrial. Although I'd retired 6 months earlier, I still had unrestricted access. The receptionist smiled. Mr. Whitmore, forgot where the place was. She laughed. That'll never happen. Maybe not, but something else might. I rode the elevator to the executive floor. Most people assumed I'd left behind every responsibility when I retired. I hadn't. There was one room almost nobody knew existed. Not hidden, just ignored. A secure archive beneath the original conference room. Only 3 people had access. Me, our corporate attorney, and my longtime chief financial officer, Elaine Foster. Elaine had worked beside me for 27 years. She was brilliant, painfully organized, and incapable of lying without blushing. When I walked into her office, she frowned immediately. You've got that look. What look? The one that means you're about to ask me something unpleasant. I taught you well. She closed her laptop. What happened? I almost told her everything. Instead, I asked a different question. If someone wanted to understand my estate, what documents would matter most? She looked puzzled. Depends. Legally? Practically. She leaned back. The estate documents wouldn't help much. No, they're outdated. I stared at her. What do you mean? You changed everything 4 years ago. I know. No. She looked genuinely confused. I mean the restructuring. Restructuring? I think you're mixing me up with someone. Elaine blinked. You didn't? No. Silence filled the room. Finally, she opened a secure folder on her computer. There. She turned the monitor toward me. Digital copies, borrowed resolutions, trust amendments, corporate ownership transfers, all carrying my electronic signature. I felt the air leave my lungs. I never signed these. Elaine's face slowly lost its color. You attended every meeting. No, you announced the transition plan. I absolutely did not. She looked back at the documents, then at me, then back again. I watched you. No, I said quietly. You watched someone pretending to be me. For almost 15 minutes, neither of us spoke. Elaine finally whispered. Then we've got a much bigger problem. How big? She opened another file. According to these records, your personal ownership dropped below 51% nearly 3 years ago. What? Control transferred into a private holding company. I stared at the screen. The company name meant nothing. Northgate Strategic Holdings. Who owns Northgate? I've tried finding out before. You what? She nodded slowly. Every search ends with shell companies, anonymous trustees, offshore registrations. Someone had been quietly building ownership around me, without my knowledge, for years. As I left Elaine's office, my phone vibrated. A message from Claire, not Ryan. Claire, can we meet? Alone. Please don't tell Ryan. No explanation, no greeting, just an address. A small cafe nearly 40 minutes outside town. And one sentence beneath it, you're in far more danger than you realize. For the first time since overhearing Ryan, I considered a possibility I hadn't wanted to face. Maybe my son wasn't the person planning the game. Maybe someone else had simply convinced him he already understood it. I arrived at the cafe 20 minutes early, not because I was eager, because I wanted to know whether anyone followed me. Old habits from 40 years of negotiating contracts die hard. I parked across the street instead of in front, ordered black coffee, chose the booth facing the entrance, and waited. Claire walked in exactly at 2. She looked nothing like the confident woman who usually stood beside Ryan at family gatherings. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back without much care. She spotted me immediately. Thank you for coming. You sounded worried. I am. She glanced toward the windows before sitting down. I only have a few minutes before Ryan notices I'm gone. That sentence surprised me, not because she was hiding from my son, because she sounded afraid of what would happen if he knew we were talking. Neither of us touched our coffee. Finally, I asked, what exactly are we splitting after I'm gone? Her face went completely blank. What? The other night, in my study, I heard Ryan say, once the old man's gone, we split it even. Color drained from her face. Oh my God, you heard that? I heard enough. She closed her eyes, then whispered, no, that's not what you think. I'd love to believe that. You have to. She leaned forward. Ryan wasn't talking about your estate. Then what was he talking about? She hesitated for several seconds. She simply stared at the table. Then she quietly said, the debt. Debt? What debt? Our debt. My debt. She looked ashamed. You don't know about the investment. I shook my head. 3 years ago, I convinced Ryan to invest in a commercial real estate project. Victor Lawson promised guaranteed returns. Victor, another new name. The project collapsed. Everything disappeared. Not just our savings. We borrowed against the house. Against their house? She nodded before I could ask. Nearly $1.8 million. I stared at her. Ryan had never mentioned being in financial trouble. Not once. He wouldn't let me tell you. Why? Because he was embarrassed. Embarrassed wasn't the word I would have chosen. Terrified fit much better. Claire reached into her purse and placed a folded document on the table. Bank notices, loan defaults, legal demands. Every page carried Ryan's signature. Every payment was overdue. We've been drowning for months. Victor kept saying one more deal would fix everything. It never did. I slowly looked up. So Ryan thinks, she finished the sentence, that if your estate settles quickly, he can finally pay everything back. The pieces almost fit. Almost, but one problem remained. He still said we'd split it. Claire nodded. I know. I asked him the same thing, and he told me, she swallowed hard, that he wasn't talking about money. A silence settled between us. Not awkward, dangerous. Claire leaned closer. I asked him what he meant. He said, another hesitation. Prudging, when this is over, we each carry half. Half the guilt, not half the inheritance. That changed everything. Before I could ask another question, Claire suddenly looked toward the front window. Her expression froze. Don't turn around. Naturally, I wanted to. Instead, I lifted my coffee cup and looked into the reflection. A black SUV had just parked outside. A tall man stepped out wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy afternoon. Expensive gray suit, confident walk. He didn't enter immediately. He simply stood on the sidewalk, watching the cafe. Claire whispered, that's him, Victor Lawson. She nodded almost imperceptibly. He wasn't supposed to know I was meeting you. The man finally opened the cafe door. The little bell above it rang softly. He smiled the moment he saw us. Not surprised, expected. He walked directly toward our booth. Mr. Whitmore. His handshake was warm, too warm. I've wanted to meet you for years. Years? I forced a polite smile. Have we met? No, but I've admired your business career. He looked at Claire. I was wondering where you disappeared to." Claire said nothing. Victor sat down without being invited. The confidence bothered me. People with good intentions usually ask before joining a conversation. He simply took control of it. "I hope Claire hasn't worried you." "She was just explaining a misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" He smiled. "The unfortunate assumption that Ryan has somehow become involved in something dishonest. I've merely been helping your family." Helping? Interesting choice of word. I studied him carefully. His suit probably cost more than my first pickup truck. His watch alone could have paid for Lily's college tuition. Yet his cufflinks caught my attention. Tiny silver chess knights. Not horses. Knights. I couldn't help smiling. "You play chess?" Victor returned the smile. "Every weekend." "So do I." "I know." That answer landed differently. "I've followed your charity tournaments for years." Another lie. I'd never played in public tournaments. Only one annual event at the vocational school. Small, local, barely advertised. How would he know that? Unless he'd been watching me long before today. Victor stood. "I'll let you two finish." He straightened his jacket, then looked directly into my eyes. "Mr. Whitmore, I've learned something over the years. People who spend too much time planning their next move," he smiled again, "often forget someone else is already planning theirs." He walked away. Claire waited until the cafe door closed, then whispered something that sent a chill through my entire body. "He only says that to people he's already chosen." For the rest of the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about Victor's last sentence. People who spend too much time planning their next move often forget someone else is already planning theirs. It wasn't advice, it was a warning. No, it was a confession disguised as confidence. The man wanted me to know he had been playing this game for a very long time. He just didn't realize. I had stopped thinking like a retired businessman. I had started thinking like a father, and fathers don't always fight to win. Sometimes they fight to save someone who doesn't even realize he's drowning. That night, I unlocked something I hadn't opened in nearly 12 years, the old fireproof filing cabinet beneath the staircase. Ryan believed it contained my estate documents. He was wrong. It hadn't held my estate for years. After Margaret died, I stopped believing important things should exist in one place, so I built something else, a contingency plan. Every major asset I owned, my investments, the company shares, the house, even the family trust, required verification from 3 independent parties before ownership could legally change: our attorney, our chief financial officer, and me. No single signature was ever enough. Not anymore. I'd learned that lesson from watching too many successful business owners lose everything to forged paperwork. Ryan didn't know that. Neither did Victor. As far as they knew, one document controlled everything. It never had. The following morning, I called Elaine. "I need a board meeting. You retired." "I know. So why?" "Because someone's been impersonating my decisions." Silence. Then she quietly answered, "I've already invited everyone." "You what?" "I didn't wait for your permission. I've been suspicious for months." That surprised me. "You never said anything." "I couldn't prove it." She paused. "But now I think I know who can." The board meeting began at 9. Ryan wasn't there. Neither was Victor. Only the 7 directors who had helped build the company with me over 4 decades. Elaine connected her laptop to the projector. "I'd like everyone to examine these electronic signatures." One by one, the documents appeared on the screen: ownership transfers, corporate amendments, trust revisions. Every signature looked exactly like mine until Elaine enlarged them. Then the room became very quiet. "The handwriting is identical." She zoomed in again, "but the pressure points aren't." Another slide appeared, then another, then another. She smiled for the first time all morning. "Someone copied Mr. Whitmore's signature. They forgot something." "What?" The pauses. Everyone looked confused, Elaine explained. "Frank always lifts his pen for a fraction of a second before crossing the letter T." She pointed toward the screen. "The forged signatures never do." 27 years, she'd noticed something even I didn't know I did. The directors exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, one of them asked, "So who benefits from these documents?" Elaine clicked once more. "Northgate Strategic Holdings, ownership records, corporate officers." The room fell silent. One name appeared: Victor Lawson. Not through shell companies, not through anonymous trusts, directly, hidden in an amendment filed just 18 days earlier. He'd become impatient. That impatience became his mistake. By lunchtime, Detective Sarah Monroe arrived with 2 financial investigators. Not because I'd called them. Elaine had. Weeks earlier, she'd quietly begun documenting every suspicious transaction after discovering inconsistencies in board minutes. She hadn't accused anyone. She'd simply collected facts, exactly the way she'd always done. Monroe listened to everything, read every report, compared every signature, then asked one question. "Where is Ryan?" Claire answered softly. "He thinks he's meeting Victor." An abandoned warehouse outside the industrial district. That was where Victor had arranged the meeting. According to Claire, Victor wanted Ryan to sign one final confirmation. Ryan finally understood enough to refuse. He'd called Claire before leaving. "If anything feels wrong, call the police." He was finally thinking for himself. Unfortunately, Victor had reached the warehouse first. When detectives entered, Ryan was standing beside a folding table covered with contracts. Victor wasn't negotiating anymore. He was threatening. "You've become a liability." Ryan shook his head. "I'm going to the police." Victor smiled. "They won't believe you. I signed because I trusted you. They'll call that negligence. I'll live with it." Victor stepped closer. "You won't have to live with anything." That sentence ended the conversation. Detectives walked in before Victor could take another step. Financial investigators seized every document: laptops, hard drives, phones, boxes filled with forged corporate seals, hundreds of fraudulent files, not just mine, dozens of elderly business owners, retired doctors, widows, veterans, people Victor believed had nobody left paying attention. He hadn't been targeting my family, he'd been targeting people who had spent a lifetime building something. 3 months later, Victor Lawson stood in federal court. Evidence came from everywhere: Elaine's records, Claire's documents, Ryan's emails, the warehouse computers, former employees who finally came forward. No dramatic confession, no surprise witness, just years of carefully documented truth. Victor was convicted of conspiracy, fraud, identity theft, forgery, and financial exploitation of elderly investors. He received a sentence long enough that he'd never run another company again. Ryan came to see me the week after the trial. Neither of us spoke for several minutes. Finally, he looked at the chessboard sitting between us. "You knew, I suspected. You were planning everything." I smiled. "No, I was preparing." "There's a difference." He lowered his head. "I betrayed your trust. You did. I don't expect forgiveness." "I know." Silence returned. Then I pushed a white pawn toward him. "My move." He looked confused. "You're still willing to play?" I nodded. "Because the game isn't over." He slowly moved a black pawn, just like he had when he was 8 years old. For the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about money or documents or debt. He was thinking about the next move, exactly where I wanted him. A year later, Whitmore Industrial opened a new apprenticeship center for young tradespeople. Elaine became chief executive officer. Claire started a financial education program teaching families how to recognize investment fraud. Ryan volunteered there every Saturday, not because anyone forced him, because rebuilding trust takes longer than losing it. As for me, I still lose chess games to Lily every Friday afternoon at least. That's what I let her believe, because some lessons are taught through victory, and others through letting the next generation think they've finally outsmarted the old man.